Close your eyes. Imagine it's Sunday evening, 1970 something. Welcome. Behind the curtain, 60 minutes. You can open your eyes. Go ahead.
Now everybody's sleeping.
So I used to look forward to well, I still do, frankly. I watch 60 Minutes every Sunday. But this is the theme of our presentation today, and I'm Cynthia Kruger. I'm from 3rd Marketing, principal. Oh! Merlin, am I talking loud enough? Okay, here we go. I'm Cynthia Kruger, principal, 3rd Marketing.
I'm Jill Beagles, 3rd Marketing, community coach, account manager.
Nancy Weinbeck, Bayview, Life Plan Community in Seattle.
And I'm Ralph Novak, Research Director at Brooks Adams.
So I work across the United States, and I work with communities like yours, developing communications, and I'm surprised all the time. Like, we thought this photo was awesome for a campaign in Phoenix. We started running it, then we held a focus group, and the audience said, wow, I guess I lived one more day. So we pulled it. I will be talking more about this in this presentation.
Again, like I said, I'm Jill Beagles. I've been in the industry for a little over 10 years. I have a background in a very large referral agency and another background in a very large organization that spans the United States as a marketing director. What I'd like to have an understanding today is in senior living, if you market properly, you can utilize your marketing dollars in a really smart way and potentially pull from the dollars that you're spending on the referral side.
So again, a reminder, I'm Ralph Novak. So my background is a little bit different. I have been doing market research and consulting services in the senior housing industry my entire career, right out of college. So it's been 20-something years. What I'm going to be talking about today is essentially lending a little bit of data support to what these fine people are going to be talking about. The data that I'm going to be presenting is from 2 or 3 different sources. It's really consumer research data, so it's direct from the consumer. It's giving their direct opinions into their preferences and needs in retirement housing and services. We have a Generations. It's a longitudinal study that we have been conducting since I graduated high school, so I wasn't doing the first iteration of the study. Those are the years that we conducted it, and we're supplementing a lot of that data with not only focus group research that we've done all across the country. In the last 2 years, we've done research in, what do I have here, 35 clients in 32 markets across the US. So we feel we have a fairly representative sample of consumers across the country, and we will be sharing a lot of that data today.
I'm Nancy Weinbeck. Again, I work at Bayview Life Plan Community in Seattle. We opened our doors almost 60 years ago, and we had never repositioned ourselves. So this is the sad slide. We were hurting, and we needed to reposition ourselves and take on a huge project so we could be a full, pretty building in Seattle. Tons of construction going on, lots of competition going up all around us, and while we have fabulous views and a great location, we were just pretty tired and sad.
So if everybody looks the same, then how would a consumer understand how to choose you? How would they understand if incontinence looks like Viagra? You can just keep rolling these slides. If anybody watches Bill Maher, and I don't, but somebody shared a link with me, which was hysterical. He covered all of the photos that sold retirement living and all of these health products.
They look exactly the same.
They look the same. So this is the goal. What we've done is Ralph has tremendous amounts of knowledge across the market, And what we've done is we've filmed a small focus group just to represent some of the studies that we're going to talk about today. And here's our first one. How old do you feel? Uh-oh, Merlin's coming up to fix our sound.
Even 60 Minutes has technical difficulties.
Yes. Sorry, it might have happened when I unplugged.
All right, let's try that again.
Well, inside, we don't feel old inside at all, you know.
I asked my grandmother once when she was 97 if she didn't know how old she was, how old would she be? And you know, without pausing, she said 19.
How old would you feel inside?
Right now,
Yeah.
60.
I'm 43.
Today I feel almost in my 50s.
I'm 90 years old, and I feel about 75.
Oh, I don't know, 40, 50.
I sometimes feel 17, I guess about 30.
65, something like that. 30-ish, 30-something. 50.
I'm 86, and I feel physically about 70. And I feel mentally about 50, and emotionally about maybe 50.
So as you can see, we have to communicate with people about how they feel and where they're at. And here's Ralph.
Well, inside,
All right, so a lot of the research that we do is basically asking who our market is. It's the same question that a lot of you are asking on a regular basis. Who are we going to be serving? Particularly in the next 15, 20 years, there's 74 million baby boomers out there. The first of them are going to turn 75 in 2021. So that's, for most of the people in this room, that's their target market. And what are they thinking about? And so our national research has showed us a lot of interesting trends. Most baby boomers don't feel old yet. They don't consider themselves aged. When you say the word retirement, they shrivel, they cower in fear. So my company was fortunate enough to be part of Project Namestorm, which co-sponsored with Leading Age and Mather Lifeways. You're all aware of this probably. It was to help change the name of the category from continuing care retirement community to life plan community. The focus groups that we did echoed these thoughts very, very clearly. The word care and continuing care retirement community, people over the age of 85 really like the word care. They like the security of it, but people under the age of 80 really didn't like the word care. It just didn't appeal to them. They were looking for something more with lifestyle. So a person's social self-esteem tends to plummet. It's almost like you're going through a second teenage to second adolescence. And a lot of it has to do with value, how you feel valued, how you're tired now. You no longer have to answer to a boss. You don't have a whole bunch of clients who respect your work. You have essentially had to change everything about the way you feel about yourself, and it tends to hurt a lot. So our industry, we consider this a fantastic opportunity. Always think positive, the glass is half full. It's an opportunity to reinforce that positive. And us as an industry clearly can do that in the way that we present our messaging. And a lot of our research has shown, and you've all heard it before, wellness is a big key, and it's a lot of the things that people are interested in the industry.
I want to chime in with you on that. So I don't know if you've been hearing the term culture editor, but there are culture editors in our society, and a doctor is a culture editor, a doctor who treats me one way when I'm 30 and a different way when I'm 55 and a different way when I'm 85. When I'm 85, my doctor can actually influence how I feel about myself. They can influence how I behave just by the way that they look at me and they talk to me. And so Leading Age we are culture editors, and how we communicate to people affects their outlook, and it affects actually how they behave and how they perceive themselves. And Nancy's going to talk more about that later.
Oh, yeah.
I just had to chime in.
No, absolutely. We're going to have an open format.
Yeah,
if we
we're
possibly can.
chiming here.
So this is what we found about the self-image of baby boomers. Now, please keep in mind, 74 million. How many of you are baby boomers? Okay, so a lot of you. I bet you that you over there have a pretty different opinion about yourself than you over there. And everybody else is different. So when we're talking about categorizing baby boomers, I think we have to keep in mind that there are lots of them and they all have different backgrounds and upbringing. They don't all want the same thing. We talk about variety and choice. But these are some of the strongest characteristics that we found in our research about baby boomers. They are demanding for a reason. They're confident. Their parents have raised them maybe different than I'm raising my kids. Hopefully I'm not raising snowflakes for my children. They are individualists but like to work together. So we think about the tech boom in Seattle, where all these ladies are from. It's a very collaborative work environment. It was built by Bill Gates. He's a baby boomer, a very confident one. They're unafraid to question rules. They value creativity, and they like to see that in their everyday life. They need to contribute, and that goes back to the sense of purpose. They really do need to contribute. That's not particular to baby boomers. That's pretty much everybody feels exactly the same way. They don't see themselves as old. I'm not sure they ever will. One of the things, talking about culture editing, videos that we see, Facebook, or you see them all over the place, old people being funny. Oh, they're so cute. I wonder if they think that they're being cute. If they're intentionally trying to be funny, I think that's fantastic. But if they're funny because they're old, that's ageism, if we view them that way. And they don't see themselves as old, and we're making them feel old by laughing at them and belittling them. I didn't mean this to be like Dad giving everybody a lecture. But that's where I'm going with this thing. Feisty. Feisty's not.
You're feisty, yeah.
So, baby boomers, a couple of other characteristics. This is the last generation where they're predominantly stay-at-home moms. That was the end of it. Most moms are working right now. Most parents are working in general. They're very self-actualized, to use a nice, really baby boomer terminology. In other words, they go after what they want. They didn't coalesce really around a central political ideology either, as we're kind of seeing. Don't go there, Ralph. Don't talk politics at a Leading Age conference. What they've really done, though, more than anything else, as 74 million of them, they redefined every phase of their life. They made it their own. Everything is theirs, and they've shaped it in the way that they want it to appear to them. And we have to make sure to appeal to that. We have to make sure to appeal to that message that says, we're going to give you what you want. You're going to tell us what you need, and you're going to demand it.
So I love this slide because society looks up to stars, and baby boomers have grown up with these people, and all of the people on this slide are still working. They're very active. The Shat just wrote a book. Paul McCartney just recorded an album. Robert Redford did another film, says it's his last, we'll see. So this is really what baby boomers might see themselves as, even if they have a very different look.
And talking about that, the way that we see ourselves, we don't see ourselves as old. We definitely don't want to be in an environment that feels that way either. So thankfully moving more into the understanding of making things modern and fresh and bringing in the specific points of having a boutique style offering. Now you can go as high end as you want with white glove service or not if that doesn't meet the needs, because the needs of your community will change regionally. That's what's important to understand. However, there needs to be that care, without saying care, that is brought to you in a way that is more hospitality oriented.
Okay, so here's where we were at Bayview before our big project, our big master plan. The target audiences that that we were interviewing, they thought Bayview looked old. We were an old community, and you know the life cycle. Our independent residents were getting quite old. We were getting more assisted living. The visual balance wasn't where younger people coming in, where they saw themselves. The apartments were old. We still had servitors. Some of you might they were those 1960s like Jetson kitchens, so we still had some of those. The building was old, the amenities were old, and how do we approach this when we're in this fixer stage and we know this big construction project's coming up and we're trying to attract a younger crowd? So we had our work cut out for us. So that was the top one was our logo before we began the rebranding process. And then the bottom one is our logo now. We dropped retirement community. Bayview, a point of view, because we have very much a point of view around aging, and also our building has the best view in Seattle. And the little bug on top is picking up on an architectural feature. We're very mid-century modern. It picks up on some of our brickwork, and we also have an amazing stained glass piece from 2008 that a Japanese artist worked on for us, and that's captured in the blue light in the middle. Okay, here was our website before our rebranding, and we didn't generate many leads at all from our website, and since we've rebranded, that's flipped entirely. We generate most of our leads now through our website, and this was really before we dug too deep into the messaging, but the one on the right, closer to the heart of everything, we were able to pick up on at least our view and where we are, and bring in awareness to our great location.
Also, to chime in with Nancy, the other part about closer to the heart is when in focus groups and interviewing her best new residents and some prospects, we learned from the residents, I know it's like this everywhere, they really love each other and they really engage and they're dancing and they're having so much fun there. So that's where the heart comes from too.
I wouldn't mind chiming in here myself, actually. I think the new website, and you probably have a lot of experience with this, it just speaks to a potential resident a little bit more. They may be able to see themselves there. It's just attractive. It talks to someone who actually grew up using the internet. So it's clearly very important to make sure that your websites are updated. I'm not the marketing guy though, sorry.
But you can talk about it.
I can talk about it.
Oh, it's still Bayview. Okay. You have to invest, obviously, in marketing when you're doing this kind of a project. And if you want to shift the way the market is thinking about your community, you've got to put the dollars in for the rebranding. And it comes back to you as you generate leads and sell those units.
So it's really true. Generating leads is incredibly important. Lead generation is something that each community talks about every day. Variance call, whatever might happen in your world. So a proper website absolutely needs to be created as if it was something fresh and modern. Stay in the trend. And once you do that and you're able to capture and grab your audience, then you should look at other places in which you're spending your dollars. Referral dollars versus marketing dollars. How much are you spending on your referrals? Are you spending a community fee? Are you spending 50% of your move-in? Are you spending 94% on a contract that might expire on December 31st and raise to 98%? Those questions are something you need to take back to your community and ask, because if you're doing the right marketing in the right way, you potentially can release dollars on another side and make a big difference in how you target to your audience and speak to them.
So food is a big thing, and you know, they're in working with communities a lot, showing creative. A lot of times we will hear, "Oh, we love our residents so much." Of course we do. We want to show our residents, or you know what, there should be people dining, and so we wanted to find out what people think. And just to clarify, we've blocked out names and logos on these advertisements because that's not the point who did it. The point is just creative and how it's perceived. So this is just two advertisements side by side, asking the audience, what's your reaction? And it was a very open-ended question. Now we can see what their results are.
I would go to the one on the right, the Rekindle Your Love.
I agree.
I'm drawn to the second one because I'm a foodie. The first one,
I'd be more to the food one. My first reaction when I saw the other one was, I'm 78, I was 72 when I moved in here, that old people live there.
I'm also drawn to the second ad. There's something that looks very nursing home about that first ad, and I'm also a foodie.
The first one sort of repelled me because it looks like a nursing home, and so I would pick the second ad, but if one would be more effective with me was one showing communal dining.
I can't actually see any food that would, you know, that I could tell what it is.
Well, there's nobody in there, so it doesn't look like it's a place I'd want to go. I probably wouldn't walk in.
It's not inviting to me.
It doesn't speak of food. I don't see food. Too much furniture. Too many words. Food is a big thing when you're living someplace and they're feeding you 3 times a day, or you know, you want to look forward to the meals. It's a social time. That's important.
I want to add in here. So there were a lot of comments. All right, let's start with, we'll involve everybody in the audience. How many people find that their residents' biggest complaint is about food? I can't believe that some of you aren't raising your hand. That wasn't actually the main point that I wanted to make, though. So you heard a couple of people, when they saw the picture of the woman, there's a lot of white, there's not a lot of food in the picture, they complained it looks like a nursing home. So we didn't include a slide here on it, but our research, going back 20 years, the number one fear of most consumers, and this is mostly baby boomers that we're talking to, is living a long time in a nursing home. So anything that can be done in messaging to avoid that sterile look, that might make someone think of a nursing home. I actually think the interesting concept about that first ad where 2 people standing next to each other, he kind of looks like a chef. I'm not totally sure. He could be a caregiver. And I think that may be part of the reaction. So in terms of the baby boomers' perspective, the second ad that showed beautifully plated food, a little bit of sushi, baby boomers can see themselves in the picture without having to be told, oh, there are other people that look like me there. They'll figure it out.
And to play on that a little bit, as you heard, two of the individuals said, I'm a foodie, I'm a foodie, I'm a foodie. I mean, really, what does that mean? I think it just simply means I like fresh food that's delicious. And yet, I think we've gone really far away from food as it's intended to be. I think sometimes it's complicated because we have to look at line items and costs and how that breaks out. And yet, there are ways to successfully do that and still remain within your budget and give your residents what they need and what they want. Is it complicated? Absolutely. Can it be done? Absolutely. Sometimes some coaching through that is really important. And those should be that should be looked at. Food is only, as it's first, with only the second to fitness as importance.
I'm going to throw out a little comment too. I think sometimes it's important to shift your perspective a little bit. And our food service director didn't come from the senior living industry, and I think that served us really well. He came from the Seattle restaurant scene, and so he's very well connected to the whole foodie culture of Seattle, and bringing that into our community has made a huge difference. And I think people love our food, and that's weird, but it's great, and it's an important thing. So I think just, maybe thinking a little differently about how you do things like food can make a difference.
Here's really quickly, one of Nancy's residents, well actually a group of them all agreed to, they got bummed when their kids wanted to spend the holidays together because they wanted to stay.
Yeah, they were disappointed they couldn't have Thanksgiving at Bayview. Because the turkey's better. True story.
True story.
So I'm going to talk a little bit here about reactions to food from some of our national research that we've done. So these are just some of the comments that we do, not the focus groups that we're doing the ad testing here, but all over the country with potential residents. They're age and income qualified to live in a life plan community. These are some of the things we just ask them, what would you... All right, so we start the conversation with, help us build your ideal retirement community. We recognize that none of you want to move into a retirement community. Help us build the community that you want to live in, that you'll move into tomorrow. Now let's talk about food and see that these are some of the comments that they give us and what we want to see. We want to see a variety of venues. Organic comes out very, very, very strongly all over the country, oddly enough. Cooked to order food, so fresh, not in the heating tray. I don't know what it's called, I'm not an operator. Fast food available, something quick that they can grab and go. Exhibition dining, they love it, that's part of that foodie culture. Wine bars, sports bars, pubs, not just for food, but also for social events, for gathering places. I've seen, how many of you do a happy hour at your community? I apologize if there are Baptists in the room, I know that's not really an okay thing, but very popular. We're finding that with baby boomers, that they love the idea of just getting together and having a social event. Outdoor dining options, really big, dining al fresco. You see, I think basically it's anything that you see in the restaurant scene. They don't want to give that up when they move to a community. They recognize the fact that when they move in, they still may be able to drive and go out to their favorite restaurant. But after a while, they need cool stuff where they live because they don't want to get out and drive as much.
I'm going to chime in on that too, if it's okay. I'm going back to culture editing, like we are culture editors. I've been at a community that was primarily assisted living, 80, 85-year-olds in the Portland market, Jewish community. They have a full bar now, not just a happy hour wine bar. They have a full bar. They have a happy hour every single day. Their bar is packed. Their residents are happy. And I mean, it's just extremely successful. So I think as an industry, we really need to check ourselves and go, why are we editing this person's life? They're 80, they're 85, they're successful, they're intelligent. They can have a cocktail at night, you know? I mean, it's not...
Well, and I think actually the last comment on here, extended dining hours. So I work all over the country with some very successful communities, and they say dining ends at 6:30, 7 p.m. I'm telling you from what I'm hearing, and this is not my opinion, this is a lot of research that we've done. Dining hours are going to have to be extended. They're going to want to eat later. They're not the same as their parents and grandparents. So we need to be aware of that.
And to play on that, in a community that I was with a while back, we did extend our dining hours, and our knock shift loved us. When you offer food or drink later on in the evening, it allows the body to calm itself. There's less issues, less problems in the evening. And so when we would have events, happy hour, we would have food, and then later keep the dining option open. It really helped, the staff actually really loved it, the knock shift staff especially. They knew that we were trying to work with them in a marketing and culinary way to keep the community as fluidly moving as possible, so everybody's happy.
Oh, and one quick comment, happy hour got us through construction. So. Note to self.
We're starting to sound like a bunch of lushes.
I know, we're not.
Right, so these are some of the, and you probably, so how many of you, anything on, how many of you have one of more of these in your communities? Okay, so we're leading edge, you guys are trying to stay on the ball. So bistros and cafes, that's been on trend probably for about 7 or 8 years now. If you don't have that casual dining option, I'm sorry, you're probably a little bit behind. Grab and go, something they can take quickly back to their apartment or their residence, duplex, whatever it happens to be, exhibition cooking. We're seeing lots of pubs and wine bars. Again, we're not lushes, we're just telling you what we see. Coffee and juice bars, and I'm not talking about a little
Pump
thing.
station.
Yeah, a little
Right.
pump where you serve yourselves. It's like a Starbucks. I'm presenting with people from Seattle, and I just promoted Starbucks. I didn't mean to do that. But they want something that looks like Starbucks, where there's a seating area where you can kind of hang out. Reservation dining, if you have a fine dining, and theme dining, big one. Ethnic dining nights of different kinds, not just ethnic dining, but maybe we'll have Mexican night, maybe we'll have Thai night, vegan night, that would be a good one.
And I threw this slide in because it was interesting to me. We were working in the next slide, yeah, the Arizona market, upscale, doing some preliminary focus groups for our community opening. That was part of the slide I showed at the beginning. But when it came to dining, this is ranked one, first is highest, 10th is last. And it was so interesting to me that takeout and room service were the first two things that they were really interested in, which kind of communicates that, yeah, they're really looking for service cultures and convenience. This is you.
Oh, this is Bayview. So as we were getting through construction, we had architectural photography come in and take pictures of some of our new spaces. So we created a dining venue up on our 10th floor, which was previously just an open space where residents could congregate. And that's the top floor of our building with fabulous, best views. So now we do happy hours up there, we have dining up there, and we've got just a couple of photos, and this went into our marketing collateral. More pictures. It's our dining room renovation. So we also, we created a bistro with grab and go and a very fancy espresso machine and frozen yogurt. Our folks love frozen yogurt, so does staff. There's that show, they had frozen yogurt on every corner. It was supposed to be heaven, but it was really hell. Anyway, we have frozen yogurt. So we have this bistro with grab and go. We have our 10th floor where we do a gourmet breakfast, which is a different breakfast service than we do in our main dining room. And we have special events up there as well where residents can have a fancier dinner by reservation. We've also set up this is our bistro. We set up a demonstration kitchen on our lobby level, which is also an activity arts space, but we have chefs from the Seattle restaurant scene come in and do cooking demonstrations, and residents can use that space as well if they don't have a full kitchen in their apartment. But there's a lot of food going on at Bayview. So our marketing material is capturing all of that. So before we really got into construction and we were trying to relay our vision of who we were going to be once we got through this construction, we dipped our toes in with some direct mail marketing, and we could still speak to the food because although we didn't have the new venues, we still did food really well. And so we picked up on that on our initial direct mail campaigns, preparing the Seattle market for the new Bayview.
And Nancy's right. Food is really a big thing, and if you have the opportunity to do those build-outs, do those build-outs. That's not always possible. So I know that some marketing directors, when they have events, get frustrated. They say, I swear you're just coming to eat the shrimp. And I think, well, how many shrimp would you like to sell in order to get it moving? I mean, I'll do it, because if I think about what a referral fee costs, I'd rather spend, what would you think a pound of shrimp costs?
I'll spend a lot of money. What do you think, 10 bucks?
10 bucks, a pound of shrimp. And how many people can you feed off that? And what kind of event are you going to throw? So when you have this opportunity to have an event, have the food, just figure out what you're paying for what. Shift the money around. Focus on food. I mean, I like to get together with friends and have a really great meal, and then all of a sudden someone turns on some music, and all of a sudden we're having great conversation, and I just think that's living. So it's interesting, even though we're in the senior living segment, we're all just living, you know, like the same thing. So.
And I think also it takes, as we know, it takes maybe 10 touches, 20 touches, how many visits to create a move-in. So maybe somebody does show up 5 times and they just eat your shrimp. But, you know, they need to do that to feel comfortable to make a deposit. So that's something to talk with the sales teams about, to say, you know what, this is fine, we expect that. Just keep nurturing this person and just keep being hospitable, because even if they don't move in, they're going to tell 10 friends that they love the food, and you got to go check out the shrimp.
Right, absolutely. Shrimp, yogurt, ice cream, whatever the case might be, good quality food.
So this may be a little bit atypical, but Nancy, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
So how did your, because I think people struggle with the idea of massive change. Who are the people that get affected the most by massive change in the current residents? And you don't want to make them feel left behind. Sometimes they don't feel as involved. So how did your residents that were living at Bayview during the renovation and the rebranding, how did they react to the results of the construction?
Oh, well, the results of the construction, yeah, the residents were very pleased. They're really using all the spaces. Our bistro, actually, so our food service director was pretty frustrated over the bistro because he had to staff it, he had to move labor hours around, and he said, you know, a lot of these bistros, they're just for marketing, nobody eats there. But Dan, our food service director, is amazing, and it's a fabulous bistro, and everybody eats there. So now he's had to divert staff from the main dining room actually down to the bistro. And we thought, you know, we were looking at how are people's habits going to change once these new spaces were created. Even the folks that, you know, 3 meals a day and I go down at 4:30 for dinner or whatever, people are shifting. Their behaviors are changing in surprising ways that we were not really expecting. So it's, most folks are really branching out and enjoying the changes.
We can help people get used to new things.
We can.
All right. So we talked about food. So we're talking about, this is the second big one, which I mentioned already. They're looking for wellness. What does wellness mean? We'll talk about it a little bit more. I think it's a very broad category. A lot of people define it a different way. In our focus group research, we say, so wellness, what does that mean to you? They always say, well, I go to the gym a lot, and then we sort of start to expand on it. I will say, in the last 4 or 5 years, the baby boomers that we're doing focus groups with, they talk about more than going to the gym. Surprisingly to me, but I guess people are paying attention. So the quote here, this is going to feel very unprofessional. This was your quote, right?
Well, it comes from the video.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So I'm not attracted to that, even though it's my truth, my reality. And we'll look at the ads at this point.
So these are both selling rehab or medical services, and the advertisement on the right is also selling memory care. And the advertisement on the right is just a different way to do that.
And now we'll show you the results from the testing.
The one on the right
seems to fit my view of what a retirement community should be about. The one on the left that starts with from the hospital, I'm not getting here from the hospital.
I actually like the first one better. Yes, it's very definitely medical, and it's focusing on an older adult requiring medical care. But so what? It's advertising skilled nursing and rehab center.
Well, again, the first one is sort of advertising the nursing home, and the second one is advertising the continuing living. So for my own personal predilection, I much prefer the second.
So I agree with all that, but I don't know that that would be an ad that would have really caught my attention, even though it's the truth. You know, it's my reality.
The one on the right seems to fit my view of what a retirement community should be about. The one on the left that starts with from the hospital, I'm not getting here from.
I actually found that ad test really interesting, because there was one comment in there that drove a point home to me. When they're looking at rehab, yeah, they recognize the fact that they're going to have to be in physical therapy, they're going to be probably in pain, dealing with some kind of pain medication. They were focused on the outcome. They wanted to see what happens when we get out. We know it's going to kind of suck while we're there. It's a reality, because the idea is to get out. Nobody wants, hey, I want to go to rehab today. It's super, super fun. No, the idea is I want to go to rehab so I can go home. And the second ad was peaceful. And it talked to me, it kind of made me think, oh yeah, it's going to be awesome on the other side. I think that's what baby boomers in particular want to hear. So let's talk about wellness a little bit. The concept of wellness, this is a multi-dimensional, there are a lot of ways to look at it. This one is a particular example. I actually don't remember where it's from. It has 6 dimensions of wellness, talks about emotional, occupational, physical, social, intellectual, and spiritual wellness. And as I mentioned, baby boomers are catching on. They talk, right after physical, they mention social right away. They're starting to understand that. A lot of people are starting to understand the fact that wonderful statistics on loneliness, but loneliness, pervasive and persistent loneliness, is basically the equivalent of smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. It can really eat away, and they understand that being social, that being in touch with other people is going to be a very, very big part of their retirement. They may have seen their parents lose friends. Everybody's done it. And so the idea of continuing to make friends and continuing to live is very important to this emerging generation of retirees or our potential prospects. So we're not talking about just a health clinic, a place to get your blood pressure checked. We're talking about lots of mental activity, physical activity, community engagement. This is what they're looking for. Socialization, I mentioned. Nutrition is a huge part of it. I just didn't want to belabor it. We've been talking about it a lot. Spiritual engagement. That's not necessarily just, it doesn't have to be religious engagement. That has to be the idea of living a spiritual kind of life. And then advanced protocols for health monitoring. That's a mouthful. We are seeing, for those of you who have been on the exhibition floor today or yesterday, you have seen a blossoming of technological products. So we're talking about baby boomers who will have grown up with the internet. They're all wearing their Fitbits. They don't mind being monitored passively if it's going to help them stay healthier and live longer. The millennials are a totally different thing. They'll transfer money from their bank account on Venmo, and I still can't get my hands around that thing. Really, you trust them to transfer money? But if it's going to, it's the similar thing. If it's going to make my life easier, they'll trust it. If it's going to make me live longer and happier, they'll trust it. It doesn't even have to be longer. It's just happier. So this is what some of our research has shown. We asked this is the question we asked: what's your most important goal of the future? They want to stay healthy. So 60% of our national panel wants to stay healthy. They want to spend time with family. So that's more than 3/4 want to stay healthy and spend time with family. This has not really changed over the entire length of the panel. This is not like groundbreaking research. But what they're doing is being active about it. They're making it happen for them. They're not sitting back saying, oh, I hope that I'm happy and I hope I get to spend time with my family. My son, he never calls me. They're calling, they're picking up the phone and pestering their son. This is personal, I'm talking about my mother. So we asked them the question, how important is physical, so we're diving a little deeper, how important is physical fitness programming to you? Not particularly surprisingly, vast majority said it's either somewhat or very important to them. This is not just occasionally lifting a weight. The idea here is to ward off, I got a good way here, hypokinetic disease. Hypokinetic disease, so it's heart attacks, diabetes, stroke. We're trying to all avoid these kind of things. They're taking positive steps to make it happen, so we have to be aware of this. Now, here's the big question. How many of you think physical fitness programming is important to you personally? How many of you are actively doing something about it? Okay. So are they. So there are a lot of baby boomers in the room, and this is what we found. So 70% have changed their diet, or actively changing their diet in order to stay healthy. They are exercising at least 2 to 3 times a week. And then another aspect of wellness, volunteering, staying engaged in the community. We know that seniors like to volunteer a lot. Baby boomers are certainly interested in this. So little personal anecdote, bought a Mega Millions ticket when I didn't win because I'm here. So not that I don't love doing this, but I thought to myself, what could I do with $1.6 billion, or $900 million after taxes? And I thought, I'll pay off the house, set up a college fund for my kids. I really thought, God, I could do so much good for the world. And I bet you a lot of us, look, we're at leading age, so I think a lot of us feel that way. And this is what they're thinking about. When I'm done with my current job, that's what I want to do, because it's going to make me feel better about myself, feel better about the world. Lastly, we asked this one, it's my favorite slide. So this is the specific question we asked. A lot of this was an online survey, so we just asked this question. How important is brain fitness programming to you? There were 3% that said it was not important to them. That's my takeaway from this one. How many people brain fitness programming is not important to at all? Staying brain fit, right? So that's not 3%. What are they thinking? Anyway, that's just my little funny takeaway.
I don't think they understood the question.
That's the point. Don't raise your hand. Please don't. Just to pull out that a little bit, we tend to label things, and that's how we can get a large group to maybe have either better understanding or to move forward in something. Just as continuing care retirement communities now life plan for reasons such being, fitness has now, and it's really been in the last 10 years where the word wellness has, it really started about 10 years ago where wellness started to really come into our vernacular. The reason being is it just isn't about lifting weights. So now we're saying brain fitness, or we're saying wellness, or we're saying, so think about how is it said in your community? Is it activities? Is it life enrichment? Is it intellectual programming? All those things are really important because it's saying something to the consumer on how you view wellness.
And they want to be active in it, so do you need to be active as well. So I'm going to ask another question. I didn't plan on doing this. How many of you have a swimming pool at your community? How many of you, be honest, how many of you think that it is habitually underutilized? Okay. So it's about programming. So I worked for a community in Arizona. They had a volleyball league, aquatic volleyball league. Can't think of the word. That got people into the pool. They got really competitive. They had people from different parts of the building fielding teams, and so it's about programming, getting people into the pool in order to make it utilized. And it doesn't just have to be for water aerobics. It can be for fun stuff too. You can have a pool party.
Again, this went into our collateral. This was part of our new fitness center, our exercise studio area, where we do a lot of really cool classes.
Nancy, can you tell, what kind of classes do you guys do? Because you have some really interesting classes.
Yeah, well, we really, we go off the strength of our staff and what their expertise is. And we hired a fitness coordinator who had a dance background, so now we're doing a lot more dance classes than we used to. And there's some interesting stuff out there, tango for Parkinson's and that kind of thing. We're doing bar classes, a variety of classes that you would see at your local gym, basically.
I was in an assisted living community not long ago. Can you guys hear me okay? And they had bar classes, and I was there when the bar classes were happening because we were filming them. But these women, they were 80, 85, their backs were straight. And it was so cool to see that, and it was so inspiring that, I mean, that's something to promote. And we, as marketers, we can talk about that, like talk about how the body is very much a product of its environment and what happens with it every day, and that becomes a sales point for you.
Here's our new therapy pool. There was a lot of controversy around this because it's a warm water therapy pool, so it's saline, so it's 91 degrees, and a lot of our newer folks coming in, they want to do labs. But we were one of the few therapy pools in Seattle, and so we had a lot of folks from the outside community for our old pool that were coming in for arthritis classes, gentle movement, that kind of thing. So it's kind of funny. It's a little problematic, but we're sticking to our therapy pool guns, and folks are starting to really enjoy. The ones that didn't think they would, it feels nice going in the hot water. And I'll tell just a very quick story. In Seattle, every summer, as part of a big Seafair festival, there's something called Milk Carton Derby, where folks, different companies, businesses, Boy Scout troops, they build boats out of milk cartons, and there's a big race right around the time of this fair. And our residents, in fact, one of the gentlemen in the videos that you've been watching, he was a sailor, and he got together with one of our retired engineers and ended up getting the whole community behind it. We also have a child care program. So everyone started bringing in milk cartons, and they built a boat, and we were freaking out because our folks were going to, go on the lake and sail this boat made out of milk cartons. But our fitness director did training sessions. We had heats. We had competitive heats of, who can, because it's the secret was this pedal that they can, put in the middle of the boat, and it was, you had to be a peddler and you had to be a paddler, and anyway, they did a lot of exercise around this milk carton derby, and our average age was 87, and our oldest paddler was 97 on the lake, and so we were the first retirement community that participated in the milk carton derby, and all the lactate cartons came from my. But thinking about fitness. In a different kind of way, and how you can get the whole community behind it into these community events that you would never think about participating in as a retirement community can be fun. So really, thinking about creative ways that your community can come together around wellness.
Yeah, it's like integrated studies, right? So you can study history and English at the same time. Mm-hmm. Well, this is physical fitness and mental engagement at the same time. And you also do that with food.
We do too, but we got a lot of good media coverage on that milk carton derby, but not when the boat started to sink, I won't tell you. But they made it.
Did they win?
No, but they completed the heat. It was amazing. And you know what? There were thousands of people at the event, and they were all rooting for baby. It was so cool because nobody, 97-year-old paddling on some milk cartons. It was pretty awesome.
So this one is about how sometimes seniors are portrayed as being silly, or because they look like they're having fun, and indeed they do have fun, right? So this next film clip is going to look at the
Okay.
next slide.
Was that what that meant? Nodding? I'm really perceptive.
So looking at these two advertisements to sell having fun, and we wanted to find out what did the prospect say, or the resident.
On the left, that's my group. Just take off the funny glasses. The right so younger, but neither picture has any men in it. And let's see a few men. Yeah, I want to see men too.
Well, I hear that you would wear the glasses, but I think this is much more respectful.
I think I like that one better too now.
Yeah.
Now that I see both of them, I like the one that are laughing and eating. I want to see younger people. I don't want to feel old.
It turns me off.
That's not me. I want to see people with hiking gear, looking more in their 60s, frankly.
They're looking silly and then they're pushing that it's on sale or something like that.
I would never in a million years put on a pair of glasses like that, and I am a person who dresses up for Halloween.
That looks very inviting to me. I would want to have a conversation with them.
That looks more real, more healthier, younger.
Yeah, because we don't see ourselves as old as we are. I see myself more like that age.
I really like that. I like those three women look like they're having a good time.
I agree. It looks like fun.
And they're eating ice cream.
Ice cream.
I love ice cream.
So they like to be able to see themselves. And it's not always it's not always the best thing to show pictures of people, I think, but
when you say see themselves, you don't mean necessarily, you're saying that perception of what themselves are. Because that's interesting that you say they want to see themselves, and I think that's the reason I piped in, that's a big industry question, right? Let's take pictures of our residents because they want to see the true self. They really want to see the perception. And that's the hard thing to cut. Where's that fine line without being too young or, I had to pipe in, I had to do it.
no. But the key is they definitely don't perceive themselves as aged.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing across the spectrum. Most of these people saw themselves as considerably younger, as do I, emotionally mostly. My wife would agree.
You know what's interesting? So there's a brain researcher in Seattle, John Medina, and he came and spoke at our organization, but he said he did a study where he laid out a series of photographs, and he had older folks saying where they identified themselves. So it was photographs through the ages, and when they looked at the photographs, most people identified themselves as, that's me, and it's the 28-year-old photograph. It's just kind of an interesting insight into when you think about yourself, that's what you look like, and that's who you are inside your brain. It's kind of it's interesting. Anyway.
And it's disappointing when you see this.
Right.
That's so disappointing. So this is, this next set, you could go to the next slide, is just about, again, communicating a feeling. So showing, both of these are very cozy advertisements, and they're both showing camaraderie and maybe being with somebody and having some time together.
Oh, the one on the right, Art of Cozy.
Definitely.
It's a good line, the Art of Cozy.
I'm a reader, and so I'm attracted to the second one immediately. It's cozy, reading by a fireplace. The other one, that's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's nice to pitch the friendliness. When you're a reader, you tend to be more of a loner, so it's not that important, the push for friendly faces.
I think I like the art of cozy. It's funny, I'm sort of feeling like, am I an ageist? Because I'm seeing older people and I'm thinking, even though when I look in the mirror, I see grandma, I'm still not seeing myself.
It doesn't warm me much. It doesn't draw me in to the community.
Whenever it's talking about, you know, there's a good deal if you sign up right now and stuff like that, that doesn't attract me. I always think, well, maybe they're having trouble filling it up or something.
Oh, I guess here's what I want to say, that you can put younger images out there, but when people come into your community, it's really important that what you're doing reflects what you're messaging. And this is a campaign we started at Bayview called Age Up, and that was a collective naming and logoing of it. And it really came out of the research, and I know Frances Fry spoke a little bit about Carol Dweck, just really quick. Some of you know her mindset research. There's fixed mindset and growth mindset, and this is really around growth mindset. And Becca Levy out of Yale, some of you probably know this too. Her research it's really amazing, and what her research is showing is the way you internalize images and messages around aging has real health consequences measured in a variety of ways. It impacts longevity. The negative perceptions impact you negatively. It's not a surprise. Positive impacts you positively. And so we thought at Bayview, we want to change all the images out there. We want to change people's perceptions, just what they're seeing. Anyway, we created this campaign, and it's internal, but we're branching out into the community. We've got pictures on our Bayview bus where we're doing some pretty cool things. Like we started a podcast, and we worked with a group of 16 to 24-year-olds, a nonprofit group down the street from us, and they help do the sound engineering for us, and we have residents just talking about aging and issues of aging and acknowledging what's challenging, but also all the gifts that we know. There are so many gifts that come with age, and so we're focusing on that. And this is just a little peek at the website. I don't think it's moving now, but if you go, the tiles shift, and it just speaks to all the good things that people have to say about growing older.
And I love the fact that the intellectual programming that you're doing, it's this incredible circle where, listening to a radio show, right, at night, everything like that, to hear voices, to listen to stories is powerful at any age and any level. But sometimes people hear the word podcast and they think, ooh, not really sure how to do that, not really sure how to go. It's a very fluid program. The complications lie in different areas, but the actual podcast itself, I love that your residents are able to get involved with that, and having that right kind of programming and maybe not calling it an activity works in wellness, and it's so helpful to start to identify how to utilize what's happening right now and make it available to those that are living in the community.
I love that too, because it helps residents to get in the now and to be. I agree. Like they're participating in modern, what's happening today culture. Yeah.
And one of the things we did was connect with a local university, and so we've got, because they're doing research on this whole Age Up project, but now we've got the kids coming in to work with our folks, and they're interviewing and doing surveys and so forth, and kind of, opening them up to, hey, I could have a career in this field, and the give and take of the intergenerational piece is so important. We all know that, but it's very exciting, and it feels good because you're putting these messages out, and you want your community to be living it. So it's exciting.
All right, so I just wanted to share one last piece of research slide with you in terms of preferences for communities. When we asked them about the type of communities that they would prefer, we asked them 2 questions which are particularly relevant to this audience here. We asked them about their preference for religious affiliation and their preference for not-for-profit status. If you can see that, I'll read it to you. So on the left, preference for religious affiliation, 40% said it's not a factor when they're looking for some kind of community living option. 28% said that they were looking for a community with religious affiliation, and 32% said specifically they were looking for a community that had no religious affiliation at all. So that's about 72% that said that it's not particularly important to them, the religious affiliation. On the for-profit status side, which is very relevant to us here, about half said it's not a factor. However, if you split the for-profit versus the not-for-profit, it's more than 2 to 1. Actually, it's just a little bit more than 2 to 1 prefer not-for-profit. This has been trending, I guess for this crowd, I would say it's been trending downward, meaning the interest in religious affiliation has been trending downward. The interest in not-for-profit affiliation has also been trending downward. And remember, we're talking about baby boomers. What they're really looking for is their best idea for the place that they want to retire. They want them to have all the programmatic elements. They want it to be affordable is another big one for them. They want to have the facilities and amenities and the care that is what they want. And who the sponsor is only a secondary kind of afterthought. They're going to choose the best. So we're all at this conference to figure out how to be better. So you're in the right place in terms of trying to figure out how to be better, because there's lots of competition out there coming online.
And I do want to say, I love the preference for profit status. It's very close, and yet when you're competing against for-profit or nonprofit, there's some really beautiful ways to find messaging in that speaks to the individuals that may be kind of teetering on both sides. When you understand that you're not a number, that you're living in a community in which the dollars are being cycled back into your communities, you all well know. That is a major component and piece. It's hard to fly a flag sometimes and say, and no offense, it's hard to fly that religious flag at sometimes. There's a lot more intensity about that feeling. But the feeling in which you have an understanding that somebody's investing in you, caring for you, people don't really get worked up about that.
From the interviews that we've done, we find that it does make a difference, but it's a secondary difference. So the first thing is, what do you have for me? What's in it for me? My selfish interest. Do I like you? Okay, you are a nonprofit, and the profits go back into the community, and that protects me from having my community being sold on the open market. I like that.
So it's not a get in the door factor,
Correct.
but it's a feel good once I'm in the door. How many of you have a religious-based sponsorship, or used to at any point? And how many of you, thank you, and how many of you have rebranded to change your name to be something that has less of a direct religious connotation? So that's a good handful. That's the movement that we're seeing in the industry, and it's not to downplay the religious affiliation. It's that it's not what you're stepping forward with. What you're stepping forward with is we're providing amazing service to all the residents that are welcome to come into our door. All right, so we're going to wrap up here, and this is the question that we all asked ourselves to answer. So we'll all answer this question individually, and I think we are starting with not me. So.
Oh, that's right. So this is, so my wrap-up slide is to just, if I were to give advice, is just to be curious and ask the questions. We hear things all the time from communities, like what I've already said, we love our residents, let's use our residents in the advertising. There aren't enough people in the ads, let's put more people in the ads. Or, just look at how you've always done things, is that the right way? And then try A/B testing. So if there is a difference of opinion or a difference of strategy opinion, it's very easy to say, let's run 2 advertisements, let's measure it over a month or 3, And then let's see what works, and then let's stop doing what doesn't work. And then ask questions of your audience. I think having a focus group as a lead generation activity is really cool, because what it does is it tells your consumers, we care what you think. Like, we are building something for you. We're customizing this for you. Help us do that. And so you will get, the response rate won't be like rock stellar or whatever, but you will get some solid people to interview, but you'll also send a message to the market that you're building something that for them. And then be different, of course. Create a brand style that stands out. Like, you want to be different than when people are flipping through the paper or they're online. You want to stop them and make them think, like, what's that? I've never seen that before. And then look further. And that does take being different and being willing to go out on a limb and put a stake in the ground and say, this is who we are. And then, of course, find an objective outside resource if you don't have resources inside. So, this is quickly the rest of my focus group. The lady with the curtains, I guess she was taken off this slide. These are the images that, is she up there? Oh, the lower left, there she is. She's the lady I made it one more day. So we launched that campaign before the focus group happened, and we quickly pulled her. And the other images are the images that resonated with the group. They were average 72 to 85, and they like creativity. They want they like the potential. I have potential. Maybe I won't throw a pot, but I like the idea that I might. And so it's showing possibilities and potential for their future that gives them a positive message from your brand.
And so my answer to the question, hey, what a surprise, it's kind of research-based. My comment is get to know your market. I started off talking about 74 million baby boomers that are coming down the pipe that your potential residents. They're very different. They are very different. And in each market, they're very different. We all need to find out who they are, what drives them, what do they want, and what will they pay for. That's a big one. And we were talking, a lot of the data that I've added to some of this today has talked about national trends, but Seattle is different than Phoenix, is different than Columbus, whichever one it happens to be, whether it's Ohio or Georgia, wherever you happen to be. But we have found that there can be very often dramatic differences in terms of expectations based on geography and sometimes within geography. Literally, the suburbs are different than the city.
Yeah, I was just going to say that even within Seattle, there are little micro markets that are very different from each other. And so you want to make sure you're reflecting what's different and unique about your community.
Right. National trends and benchmarks are fantastic, but they don't accurately reflect what's happening in your market. So it's an imperative for you to understand who you are and who your market is. But these, going back, it's wonderful that I just do a 180. There are some things that we're seeing, and these are the big takeaways for me. So this chart, you're gonna like this one. This chart illustrates the rectangularization of morbidity. So the dotted line is what we have grown accustomed to. As you get older, you decline, and you may go through the continuum, which is the intent of the continuum. However, if you show this to a baby boomer, they're like, I want the dark green line. I'm gonna do everything within my power, and if you don't give it to me, I'm gonna figure out a way to get it for myself, to stay as healthy as long as I possibly can, and then I'm just gonna die in my sleep. It sounds good, honestly, it sounds great to me. But I think the difference is that baby boomers are not just ready to accept what happened before, they're gonna make their future happen. Not all the same. And an example of not all the same is the last piece of research that I wanted to show you. We asked a question about where you would prefer to retire. The choices here from left to right are within a mixed use or planned community. The purple is suburban, then resort community, the orange is rural, then urban, and college town. Big takeaway from this, different strokes for different folks. There's something for everybody in this bundle. They don't all want exactly the same thing, except they all want to die in their sleep after they live a long, healthy life.
They don't want to be in a
They definitely don't want to be in a nursing home. That's absolutely true. So there's something for everybody. I bet all of you have a community in one of these categories.
Oh, this is me. So yeah, start with baby steps. We started just with a direct mail campaign before we changed our messaging, but we had good photographs and got the word out, and we just got started. And you know, it's all pretty obvious. Make a plan and figure out how much you can put into your marketing budget to generate those leads and those visits to your community. Meet with your folks. It's so good for them, and it's so good for you, right? It's just you get great information, and they are helping you and teaching you, and there's so much value in that. And then find somebody good to work with. It's really important too. I've got one more.
So that's for me. What can you do? What can you do to make a difference starting today, right? So talking about dollars previously, it was marketing dollars versus referral dollars. Think about what's important. So if you can afford it, hire a research study. Make that happen so you can understand whether it's a micro market that you're working with within your community of Seattle, Phoenix. You need to understand your consumer and how to market to them. If you're on a budget, hire a moderator. Invite focus groups, like Cynthia said, into your community. Utilize it as an event, as an opportunity to let your community know that you're taking personal steps in order to make the community better and different. And you're doing these focus groups and study groups in order to make sure that you have not only the participation to get the information, but that you actually care about marketing to the next group, not just marketing to who you already have. You can bring that information into your visuals and your messaging, and then before rolling out that campaign, test the water and make sure that you test it on the web, the paper. There's other ways that you can do it. However, when you find that right partner that can help you through that process, you can spend your dollars wisely, and this is a really great way to start. Secondly, which I always have to say, when you're looking at spending your dollar, think about quantity versus quality. Does it feel good to, who are marketing directors in the room? Okay, so when you go into the office and you open up your CRM system and you're like, sweet, there's 25 leads. I cannot wait to get a hold of these. Not vetted, a number that's bogus, Okay, my 25 just went down to 18. Okay, I'm not totally disappointed. I'm gonna work with that 18. Call, oh no, my parent already moved in. This happened, that happened. Now you're down to 4. Oh, now I'm sweating a little bit because I didn't throw my event last month, and now here I am, and I've got a quantity versus quality issue. Those 4 that you're working with, whoa, they're not hot, they're cold. Now I'm at 0. So you have to ask yourself, what is it? Is it that I want all these leads coming into my lead bank and working with those? And that pressure that others around the marketing director in the community, they look at that 25 and say, what happened to the 25? You need to figure out who you're messaging to, who is your audience, and you need to start advertising and marketing to that audience. No one will know who is better for your community than you when you partner with the right person that can find the proper messaging for you.
So I think we open this up for questions. Julie, if you want to have the microphone, or you could just, we could see if we can hear you, and then maybe Julie could repeat the question.
And don't forget to evaluate the session in your Leading Age annual meeting app. There's a simple icon.
Unless you didn't like it.
Well,
Proof in advertising.
Thank you, Julie. Does anybody have a question for us that they'd like to pose? Raise your hand.
Will the slides be made available to us through the app?
They might. It's a 400 or 500 meg file because of the video, and I think that might be too big.
It is.
However, I think we could post it somewhere, and
Sure.
and
without the video, that would be great because there's a lot of good information.
that could absolutely.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah,
Any
perhaps
of
we
you?
could put a transcript
We will.
in, for sure, for the video.
We can do that. Any other questions?
To the left.
Yes. Question.
Can you speak about the trends that you've seen in your research related to emerging communities or diverse communities?
Everybody hear the question?
Sorry, I can't use your microphone.
So the question is, have we measured any trends regarding diversity in communities?
Not diversity community, but what diverse populations want, so Hispanic Americans, African Americans, LGBT community, you know.
Yeah, I don't, so I'm super honest because I just do research. We don't have a whole lot, we haven't collected a whole lot of data on this. We've mostly been age qualifying our population that we've been talking to. Anecdotally, I know that there has been a sort of blossoming presence of, in particular, ethnic minorities that are, I also do populations, I'm a demographer. So the longer an ethnic group has been in the United States, the more assimilated they tend to get. And some old habits die hard, especially caring for the sick and the elderly, particularly Latin American families tend to do that at home. It's an insult not to take care of your elderly and sick, but we are starting to see a much greater presence of ethnic minorities in communities. That has triggered a lot of culture change as well, especially in areas where there are a lot of ethnic minorities.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm tiny. Sorry.
Sure.
I have worked with an Eastern Indian organization from India who's building a lot in the United States, and they are culturally for Eastern Indian. Silicon Valley, there are communities, a lot of communities growing up there because of immigrant tech workers. Their parents are moving here and then moving in.
Anyone else? Oh, way in the back. Way in the back.
We're all hearing a lot about the second time venue or what the baby boomers want. We're also hearing a lot that the baby boomers are not going to retire. Are we talking about or addressing how to get somebody to move in who's still actively employed?
Question was, are we talking about people moving in who are still actively employed of the baby boomers? Baby boomers who say they're never going to retire.
I think it's a really good question. In particular, from the fact that there are a lot of statistics about baby boomers that have changed dramatically since 2008, in that I have some slides on it, if I could show them to you later, but baby boomers are not nearly as wealthy as they were before the market crash. They had a lot of money in their homes that were a lot heavily overvalued. So we actually are predicting that there will be a lot of baby boomers that will be, for lack of a better term, not retiring, that will continue to work. And I think just as an industry, we have to be responsive to that and start planning for that and building that into our communities, allowing spaces or creating office environments, simple, silly things like making sure that there's high-speed internet in the office. Maybe we create a co-work space, you know I'm talking about, where you have sort of an office manager that can help organize space for you. I think the other issue, though, is when we're talking about baby boomers not retiring at the same, or not moving to communities at the same rate, what we have to understand is that we are seeing a categorical jump in terms of the number of people that are out there. So if, for those of you who are interested, if, typical market penetration of a community is, somewhere 3-4%, even if we maintain 3-4%, or even if we drop down to 1 or 2%, we're literally talking about more than doubling the size of our age target population that are out there. There's going to be demand for our product. This is me talking based on research. There's going to be demand for our product, even if not as the same percentage of baby boomers want to move to life plan communities as did in the past.
And I love that question really quickly. That would be, there's a really good opportunity to utilize a styling of membership programs. Think about that in the way of dealing with intellectual programming. They may not move into your community, but how can you gather them and bring them to your community, build trust, and also make a little bit of money? If you can bring someone to your community and you have something happening that is
of value to that individual, they'll pay membership program prices and rates. We've seen it in a session here at Leading Age. On the flip side, how do I make money off of my wait list? And there's a Life Plan at Home opportunity that's really booming on the East Coast. It's been in development for 10 years, but really coming to boom in the last 2. So if we start thinking of things about membership programming, if someone's not ready to move in, they're not going to move in. So what can you offer them right now that they can pay into, that they can enjoy, that will continue to keep the relationship going and keeping them engaged? So thinking about programming and membership opportunities are really important.
Nancy could talk about her fitness club.
Yeah, I just shut.
Sorry. I'll talk about it while you're going. So,
I've got a cold, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Do you want me to talk? Okay. So Bayview, Seattle has a fitness club that people pay a membership for. They come, they work out, they have access to the personal trainer, and that establishes a really tight bond with the community. So of course, when the person's ready to move, they're going to move in. From the marketing side, my messaging hope is that we will stop using the word retirement community. Yes, it does tell people maybe the category of living, but what we're hearing from focus groups is it's just living. I can figure it out from the pictures that this is a product for me. I don't need to be told it's retirement or necessarily senior, because senior's a label. And you know, whoever can create this new term, it would be worth billions of dollars. Because
I think in terms of terminology, though, I think we mentioned this yesterday. We were talking amongst ourselves. Retirement living, age restricted, I hate restricted, but any term like that, it's really an industry term. When prospects are looking to move into communities, they're looking at Bayview or Pennswood Village. They're mentioning it's a place that they know of and that they have been marketed to. When they search for whatever it is, let them search online for what they want. But what they're going to end up seeing is the name of their next home, not retirement living or age 60. I think we may focus on that a little bit too much.
Yeah, the non-ageist term is older adult. That's what you want to be saying, not senior. You want to say older adult. That's what the research is at right now.
Great. Well, we're really close to the end. Anyone else? Please, anyone else? Okay.
I heard the first part, not the second part.
So are you still including those words in your articles in terms of search engine optimization, since that's what people are still searching, but you're just not having it in your...
Yeah, you have to. Well,
Thank you very much.
So much. We really